Welcome to my honors project presentation, Math and Science Children's Literature from infant to third grade. Now, this presentation is based on each age group, which will lead for 3 math books and 3 science books in which children can learn and engage from. Now, as this presentation is about 73 slides long, and I will summarize it into 1 math book and 1 science from each from each age group. Starting with my first slide is infant toddler math. I have 10 in a Hurry, author and illustrator by L.O. Cole. This book was published in 2021. As for the summary of the story, this story does tell about how each colorful fish is paired with each number, and on the way down making the concept of the book, it makes a double concept book. But what is even better is that this story is a funny story. This story will have toddlers counting backwards, guessing what the next rhyme will be, and laughing hysterically each time a fish gets eaten. A curriculum connection that I make with this story is that an activity that could help children learn how to count backwards, because children can easily learn to count 1, 2, 3, but can they actually learn 4, 3, 2, 1? So this story is really good in how it challenged them to learn. And a standard is counting and cardinality, which compares numbers and quantities. The child applies a range of strategies such as matching or counting to compare sets of objects. Now, this is another story that I have, which is Penguins 1, 2, 3. And the third for infant toddler math is How Do Apples Grow? Now, as for infant toddler science, I have this one, which is Clouds. Now, I will explain this one since I really enjoyed reading a little bit more about this book. The author is Emily Kate Moon, and also the same illustrator. The title of this book is Drop, an Adventure Through the Water Cycle. This book was published in 2021. A summary about this book is that this is a book about a drop of water named Drop. As toddlers listen through the story, they will be able to explore the adventures that Drop is having, and this would also make them acknowledge how a drop of water actually makes life on Earth possible. This will help them take consideration on children about the importance of water on Earth. And as a children who doesn't like water, a curriculum connection is that this book connects to science early standards, as this teaches children about the different cycles of water. Now, this book is really fun for them because it will make the children make predictions of what will happen to water during different stages of the water cycle. And one standard of this is that this uses and shares observations of local weather conditions to describe patterns over time. A third book of science for infant and toddler is Living and Non-Living. Now, moving on to the next age group, which is preschool, we have math. The first story is How Do Dinosaurs Count to 10? The author is Jane Yolen, illustrator Mark Teague, and this book was published in 2024. Now, as for the summary of this story, this is a short story in which encourages young children to practice their numbers from different perspectives of the dinosaurs. This is a fun and short story that will help children learn from dinosaurs, since children all love dinosaurs, and counting with them is going to be really fun and engaging to learn with this book. With a curriculum connection, I would use an interaction for the story as having the children gather items and group them from 1 item to 10 items. This way the child can learn how to count and visualize how 3 items is more than 2 or 1 items. And this does follow with the AC education and learning standard when the child displays ability to hold attention and engaging in this activity. Another book that I have for this same age group is All Shapes Matter. Another book that I have for math for preschool is The Crayons Book of Numbers. This book is also really fun to read. Now moving to preschool science, I have this book that is called 8 Little Planets, author Chris Ferry and the same illustrator Chris Ferry. This book was published in 2018. I consider this book really fun because it is short, and this book is where children will be able to travel around the solar system and learn about what makes each planet different and unique. This story goes from Neptune and Mercury and all the planets in between. And I consider that children's learning planets will help them open more their minds and make them visualize how small we are compared to many, many, many items and planets and galaxies that are above us. A curriculum connection that comes with this story is an interactive activity for this story, which is to engage with the child on painting small foams of ball based on the color of the planets. This way they can learn more about the planets and be creative with it. Another story I have is all about weather. And the last one for preschool science is Magnet Push, Magnet Pull. Moving on to the next age group, I have grades kindergarten to 1st grade math. This book is called Counting Animals on the Farm. Now the author is Godzilla Books, as well as the illustrator is Godzilla Books. This book was published in 2020. This book is really great because it introduces counting items to students for this age group. In the book, it shows different farm animals as children are counting to 10. Counting can be done by looking at the pictures and naming each farm animals. And children have really fun and engaging learning in this book as they are looking at the animals and counting. A curriculum connection with this book is that it can be used to do independent reading, naming, and identifying farm animals, and introducing counting up to 10. An example of an activity is that teachers can print pictures of farm animals, having the children to do a collage with them along with counting them individually from 1 to 10. Another book from this category is Chica Chica 1, 2, 3. And this book is really popular. I've seen many colleagues and students know about this story. Another one from this age group math, I have 1, 2, 3, Octopus and Me. Moving on to kindergarten to 1st grade science, I have Solar System book. Now, from this age group, the science book is called Things That Float and Things That Don't. The author, David A. Adler, illustrator, Anna Rev. This book was published back in 2014. This book is about finding things that can float and that can sink. Children will be able to learn through this book and how to find different objects around that they can use so they can determine their findings. Now, children love water and they love to explore and to see what can float and why, finding the reason as to why things don't float. Now, this book is really fun and makes them reflect on that. A curriculum connection is that this book can be used in the classroom doing science experiment. An activity that the teacher can do is that they can fill a bucket with water and see whether the objects you choose sink or float. Then students can create their own findings. Another science book from this category is All the Water in the World. Moving on to the next age group, we have grades 2nd to 3rd. We have the math book. This one is called Bedtime Math. Another book of this age group, math, we have 5 Tough and Tiny Seeds. Now for the last one for this age group, this one is called 100 Days. The author is Margaret McNamara, illustrator Mike Gordon. This book was published back in 2023. Now this book is about the 100th day of school and the party class, and the party that the class is going to have. The children have been asked to bring 100 items for the party. Unluckily, Hannah decides to bring in 100 buttons. She decides to collect them and recount them to make sure she has 100. And although she gets these 100 buttons, she does get sick. Therefore, she misses that day and she gets sad. But when she comes back the next day, she has 101 items, which encourages students to count from 1 to 100. And I think this book is really helpful for children to learn and expand their counting. A curriculum connection that I can have with this book is that this book can be used for engagement by having the children find groups of objects. It can also be used for counting and sorting objects into number groups. I consider that this is a fun activity that our school does on the 100th day. The children can get very excited to show what they brought in. Moving on to the next category, which is grades 2nd to 3rd for science. We have this book that's called Change It. As for our next book, we have Cece Loves Science. Now moving on to our last book, we have Vivi Loves Science, which is similar to the previous book. Now this book, the author is Kimberly Derting. Illustrator is Jolie Murray. This book was published back in 2021. Now this book is about a young girl and her classmates that go on a field trip to the ocean and learn about tide pools. This book will definitely encourage children to explore more about the ocean and how tides are moving. It is very helpful that through books we make our children the understanding of how deep and how magnificent the ocean is. And this book is really great on explaining this to children. A curriculum connection is that this connects to the STEM science by teaching children about marine biology and conservation. I would definitely relate this to an activity by allowing students to play with water and discuss the movements, such as with a water table or a bucket, just trying to make movements on how the water actually moves, and it can make small waves. Now, coming towards the end of my presentation, I have this last quote by Dr. Seuss, which makes reference on the more that you read, the more things you will know. The more that you learn, the more places you'll go. And hopefully children are able to learn more from science and math books, as this is very helpful for them for their learning, their knowledge, and their encouragement to explore the world that surrounds them.